Okay, so you know how some people just seem to like glide through life with this like aura of, I don't know, grace. Like they can handle any curveball life throws at them.
Right. They just seem to navigate those like tricky conversations, excel in their careers, and they just kind of stay calm under pressure.
Yeah, exactly. And we're all kind of sitting here like, what's their secret? Do they have some like cheat code for life?
Right. It's like, give me some of that. But, it really might just boil down to, you guessed it, emotional intelligence.
So it's not just about being like, the nice person in the room. We're always looking on the bright side.
No, not at all. It runs much deeper than that. It's really about understanding and managing your own emotions in a way that's effective. And the good news is it's a skill set, something you can develop and improve upon.
Okay, so this is like attainable, right? It's not just something people are born with.
Absolutely. Everyone has the potential to increase their emotional intelligence.
That is good news.
Yeah.
Where did this whole concept of emotional intelligence even come from?
Yeah, so the actual term itself is pretty recent, but the idea, the core concept, it's been around for centuries.
Interesting.
Yeah, even way back, Aristotle kind of touched on it. Do you remember that quote from the Intemotionnelle website? Something like, no man is intelligent by nature.
Oh, yeah. I remember that one.
He goes, no man is intelligent by nature. It is by associating with others that he becomes more intelligent than the most intelligent of them.
So like we actually get smarter, more intelligent by interacting with others.
That's exactly the point. And that idea right there, that's a cornerstone of emotional intelligence. It's about understanding our own emotions, sure, but it's also very much about being in tune with the emotions of the people we interact with every day.
Right. So it's not enough to just be aware of our own feelings. We've got to be able to recognize and understand other people's feelings too. Makes sense.
Exactly. And then we can use that understanding to navigate our interactions in a way that's, more beneficial for everyone involved. And Intemotionnelle, they actually define emotional intelligence really well. They say it's the ability to perceive your own emotions and those of others, to understand them, to use them, and to regulate them to achieve a clearly defined objective.
So it's not all touchy-feely. There's a practical, goal-oriented side to it too.
100%. Emotional intelligence is a key ingredient in successful relationships, careers, and even personal fulfillment.
Well, so how do we actually unlock this superpower? How can we get better at this whole emotional intelligence thing?
Well, it all starts with understanding the core components of emotional intelligence, and there are 5 main ones to focus on: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and then social skills.
5 pillars. Okay. Gotta build those up. But that also sounds like a lot to work on all at the same time.
It can be a little overwhelming, yeah. That's why it's helpful to, break it down a bit. So let's start with self-awareness. Have you ever found yourself like snapping at someone? Maybe you were stressed out or something, and later you're like, man, that wasn't really me. Why did I do that?
Oh, all the time. Especially when those deadlines start piling up at work.
Right. It's like our fuses get a little short.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of where self-awareness comes in. It's about recognizing your own emotions as they're happening, understanding what triggers them, how those emotions affect your behavior, even your thought patterns.
So self-awareness is like kind of hitting the pause button, right?
Yeah.
Before you react, you like take a second to actually feel what's going on inside.
Yeah, exactly. Becoming more aware of like your own personal emotional landscape, how it all works and how it influences the things you do. And then, so imagine you could pair that awareness, that self-awareness, with the ability to actually manage those emotions.
Okay.
Like effectively. So you're not just aware of them, you can actually kind of steer the ship a bit. That's where self-regulation comes in. That's the second pillar of emotional intelligence.
Okay, so it's less about just like reacting to everything and more about, I guess, responding in a way that's thought out. Man, that would be helpful. I could use some of that, especially in those high pressure moments.
No, tell me about it. Though it is easier said than done.
For sure.
Because it's not about ignoring or suppressing those emotions, It's more about having the ability to choose how you express them, how you manage them. Like, let's say you're at work, you're working on this big project, and you get some tough feedback. It wasn't what you wanted to hear.
Oof.
Right? So someone with strong self-regulation, they might still feel that initial sting, Like, ouch, that kind of hurt, that disappointment, maybe even some frustration.
Yeah.
But instead of, immediately firing off a reactive email or just like shutting down completely,
Right.
they take a step back. They pause.
They don't let the emotions totally hijack the situation.
Exactly. So maybe they take a few deep breaths, maybe go for a quick walk to clear their head, or even just like jot down their initial thoughts and feelings in a journal, privately process it a little before responding.
That seems so much healthier,
Right.
Creating that little bit of space, that buffer between what you're feeling and how you react.
Yeah, that space to make a conscious choice about how you're going to respond, that's huge.
Yeah.
And that kind of thoughtful response, that's what usually leads to a more positive outcome overall. Now, let's talk about what fuels us, what keeps us moving towards our goals, even when we hit those inevitable roadblocks. And that's motivation. This is the third pillar. It's about that inner drive that keeps you going, even when things get really tough.
Okay, so I can definitely see how that ties into emotional intelligence, because if you're easily derailed by every little setback or obstacle, you're not going to get very far, are you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be much fun to be around.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, you need that resilience.
Yeah.
Think about someone who's trying to, eat healthier, right? They might have a couple slip-ups, maybe an extra cookie here and there.
Oh, yeah.
But instead of just saying, I blew it, back to the pizza. They're like, okay, what happened? What can I learn from this? Maybe next time I'll just have one cookie instead of 5. They adjust, they adapt, and they keep moving toward their goal.
So it's that resilience, that ability to kind of bounce back from challenges without losing sight of the bigger picture.
100%. And that resilience, it's a hallmark of someone with high emotional intelligence. But it's not just about us. Right? It's not all about our goals and our experiences. We share this world with other people, and that brings us to empathy, the 4th pillar.
Empathy. That's a big one.
Yeah.
That's about putting yourself in someone else's shoes.
Yeah.
Really trying to understand what they're going through.
Yeah. It's about recognizing and understanding those emotions that other people are experiencing. Even if we ourselves haven't walked in their exact same shoes, haven't lived through that exact same experience.
Right.
Like, let's say a friend's going through a really tough time. Maybe they lost their job or something. Empathy would mean, not just saying, oh, that sucks, but really trying to see it from their side, understanding how heavy that situation must feel for them. And then you can offer support in a way that's actually helpful.
So it's like listening with your heart as much as your head,
Yeah.
Really trying to connect on that deeper level.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. And that leads us beautifully into the 5th and final pillar of emotional intelligence, social skills.
This is where the rubber meets the road, right? Like all of that internal work we've been talking about, it all comes out in how we interact with the world around us.
Precisely. Our social skills, they're like those tools that we use to build healthy relationships, to communicate effectively, and just navigate all those social situations with a little more grace.
Okay.
It's everything, really. Active listening, conflict resolution, building rapport with people, even like inspiring others.
Oh, wow. So it's like you're reading those subtle cues in a conversation.
Yeah.
You're kind of adjusting your communication style to match the person in the situation and ultimately like finding common ground.
Absolutely. Think about someone who's like amazing at networking. They can walk into a room full of complete strangers and somehow they strike up these engaging conversations.
Right.
They build connections. They make people feel comfortable. That's social intelligence in action.
So we've got these 5 pillars, right? Self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills.
Yeah.
It seems like they're all like interconnected, like each one kind of builds on the last.
Absolutely. They really do. They work together. And mastering these skills, it can have a huge impact, not just on, your career or whatever, but on your overall well-being,
Yeah.
how happy and successful you are in life in general.
Yeah, I totally see that. But I'm also wondering, like, are there other factors that come into play? Like, I know for me, some days it's just easier to be, the emotionally intelligent person, the one who's cool, calm, and collected. And then other days, it's like, forget it.
Oh, yeah.
What about those times when it feels like our emotional intelligence is like totally out of whack? Is there something else going on there?
I'm so glad you brought that up because there's this really interesting connection between our emotional state and something you might not expect, blood sugar.
Wait, really? Are you saying that what I had for breakfast could like totally sabotage my big presentation?
It can actually have a pretty big impact. Remember that article we looked at, Glucose at Emotions? It was talking about how when our glucose levels fluctuate, it can really mess with us.
Yeah.
Our emotional regulation, how we make decisions, even the way we interact with other people, it can all be affected. When our blood sugar drops, our brains just don't have the fuel they need to function at their best.
Oh, wow. So that whole hangry thing, it's not a joke.
No, it's a real thing. When your blood sugar gets low, it's like your brain goes into like survival mode. And those higher level thinking skills, the ones we need for emotional intelligence, like thinking clearly, making good decisions, not overreacting, they kind of take a backseat to more basic functions.
So that explains why I sometimes like totally lose it when I haven't eaten in a while.
Yes.
It's like my brain just can't even.
Exactly. It's not just you. The research on this is pretty fascinating. Stable blood sugar, it's super important for the prefrontal cortex, that part of our brain that's basically in charge of planning, decision-making, and emotional regulation.
Okay, so then what can we do about it besides just, not skipping meals, which I am definitely guilty of?
Well, first of all, eating regular balanced meals is key.
Okay.
And focusing on foods that provide that sustained energy release, not the quick spike and crash.
So, like, what kind of foods are we talking about here?
Think complex carbs, lean proteins, healthy fats, things like whole grains, fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts, seeds, that kind of stuff. And timing is important too. Like, try not to let yourself get to the point where you're absolutely famished, because that's when you're more likely to make, let's just say, less than ideal food choices.
Right. Inhale a whole bag of chips. Been there.
Yeah.
So it's like we have to be as mindful about fueling our brains as we are about fueling our bodies, especially if we want to be at our most emotionally intelligent.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, it's all connected.
This has been so eye-opening. So for those listening who are like ready to level up their emotional intelligence, where's a good place to start?
It really all comes back to self-awareness. That's the foundation.
Okay.
Start paying closer attention to how you're feeling throughout the day. Notice those little triggers, the things that make you feel happy, the things that stress you out, all of it.
Yeah.
And journaling can be a really helpful tool for this, just to start noticing those patterns.
And once you have a better handle on your own emotional landscape, then you can start building up those other areas.
Right. Exactly. Like, find healthy ways to manage stress. That's your self-regulation. Maybe it's exercise, maybe it's deep breathing, whatever works for you. And for motivation, set some realistic goals and then, don't forget to actually celebrate those little victories along the way.
Oh, that's important. And then there's empathy. That's huge. We got to make an effort to really, truly listen to the people around us and try to see things from their perspective, even if we don't necessarily agree with them.
Exactly. And last but not least, social skills.
Yeah.
Be present in your conversations. Really listen when someone's talking to you. And don't be afraid to step outside that comfort zone a bit, make some new connections.
I love it. This has been an incredible deep dive into emotional intelligence. It's amazing to think that it's not some like magical quality that some people have and others don't. It's something we can all work on.
Yes. And it's a journey. It's not about being perfect. It's about being open to learning and growing and, being patient with yourself along the way.
So true. To recap, we've got our 5 pillars to build on, we've got to fuel our brains for success, and we have to remember that becoming more emotionally intelligent is a lifelong journey. But man, is it worth the effort.
It really is. The rewards are incredible.
And on that note, we'll see you next time for another deep dive.